you're very welcome along to another episode of the Offload Dressing Room. Donica, we're in for a treat today.
Oh, yes, we are delighted to be surrounded by Lions royalty. Sir Ian McGeechan. Geech, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. How are you?
Good, thank you, Donica, and great to see you and Tommy looking so good. Are you still playing? You should be.
We wish. You're trying to rope both of us in now for Doncaster. We know what you're at. If any man could talk us into it. Geech, we will chat about Lions and we'll chat about the brilliant days together, but we all got a bit of a fright when we heard you had a bit of a medical scare. Just how are you doing? How's your health? How's everything with your family?
Yeah, it's good, thank you. Yes, I had finished the cancer treatment about 8 weeks ago now, and just middle of reviews, but the first up view is that it's all good. It's been cleared, so I'm delighted. And Judy and I did open a bottle of champagne, I have to say.
I can imagine you did. Listen, I couldn't imagine the shock of that. But when I saw you before, I bumped into you and Rala before the Lions and Argentina match. And to walk in on that conversation was so interesting. Whenever you're able to tell me that you've been given the all clear, I was absolutely delighted, and great to see you looking so fit and healthy as well. And working alongside doing the Lions matches with Sky too. But I believe you're not travelling out to Australia this time round.
No, not this time. I'll be watching the test matches now from my own lounge and sofa, so I'll be looking forward to it. I have to say, looking forward to it now.
It'd be strange for you not being there.
Yeah.
No, well, it's been a while. I've been to most. I feel quite privileged, Tommy, to have had the opportunity so many times, and it's always it's just a great year, isn't it, when it's a Lions year?
It is really special, Geech, and you've mentioned it. Like, you've been involved as a player in the 70s and then in every tour since 89. Is that right? You've been on them?
Yeah, one shape or form. Yeah, I was coaching or with Sky. So not being too far away. And they're just great occasions, as you know, and it's been nice to have been able to do that. I just feel it's been a privilege to be involved with the Lions directly, and so as a player and coach, it's been a tremendous part of my life.
What does it mean to you? Like, what it comes around every 4 years. You're known as the Lion Man. Your book, The Lions When the Going Gets Tough. I mean, your life and career, even with Northampton and everything you're doing playing wise, but you're just synonymous. You embody the spirit of the Lions, Geech. What is it about the Lions that makes it so special for you, that made it such a big part of you and Judy's family and life?
I think, I don't know if you two agree with me, but it's quite personal, the Lions, because you never know whether you're going to be selected or not on one thing. And as I did, getting the letter through the post and filling in the form at the bottom saying, will you accept yes or no? When you see that Lions emblem and they're asking you to be part of a touring squad, I think it sort of hits you, because I don't think although I didn't anticipate playing, to be honest. So to be part of that 74 tour, getting the letter was a huge moment for me, and and it is a privilege to have that involvement with them. Back in 74, my heroes were there: Willie John McBride, Gareth Edwards, JPR Williams, and so it went on. Just outstanding players who had a successful Lions tour 3 years earlier. to have that opportunity to tour with them and train is just an incredible opportunity. I still say it's a privilege, but very personal, I think, because you get part of a group which is so intense and so close for so many months, and yet we'll never play. As a group, we'll never come together again on the rugby field. And you two must have felt that as well. That you've got this special time playing with players and playing in a squad that will not come together again on the field. But you have an identity. You have a year, whether it's 2009 or whether it's 1974. It doesn't matter. They are quite unique to that group of players and coaches. And as I say, a real privilege, I thought, just for me to have that opportunity to be part of that.
They certainly are unique, but one that probably stands out among all the rest was 97. Maybe it was the fact that it was the turning of professional from amateur to professional, but that 97 tour, we talk about it all the time. It lit something in the two of us that, you always, if you play the game, you wanted to play for your country, but just to see the elevation that there was something higher. But that tour was special. Just maybe you might tell us a bit about that group, that 97 group, and just, your time with that one, Geach, because that was something iconic.
Yeah, it turned out very, very special. And I think it was almost just the right things in the right place at the right time. 4 years earlier, the Lions in 93 had been selected by committee, which, gave an interesting group. When Fran Cotton, who was manager, asked if I'd be coach in 97, I just said, Fran, please, yes, but on 2 conditions: that Jim Telford coaches the forwards and that you, me and Jim actually select the squad. I said, if I'm going to fail, I want to fail with the players that I've chosen, not somebody else has chosen. And Fran was brilliant manager, and we just had a good relationship, got the squad we wanted. It was the first time Sky had followed a tour, I think. So it's the first time all the games were live, away from the test matches. And obviously the video came out afterwards, but it was a group of players. We did things slightly differently. A lot of the players, Martin Johnson, who was, captain, had played, I think, 51 games before that tour. So we had a first week which was a bit different, not a lot of rugby in it, getting everybody together. But it was how they built that. The management, we made the players responsible for looking after each other, off the field as well as on it. So there was no duty boys. It was, you looked after your roommate. And on the field and in training and wherever we went, everybody was on time, but they always looked after whoever roommate they had. They made sure that kit was on the bus, and they were all there as a group, and they just built up a really tremendous relationship. There was some characters on it. Doddy Weir, unfortunately, Doddy got injured and no longer with us. But John Bentley. So there was a lot of smiling, smiles on faces, which I think just collectively really drew them together as a group, and they just trained really hard, very hard, and I still remember, just one episode after we'd won the first test and we were going off to eat in a Mexican restaurant in Cape Town, Martin Johnson standing up on the bus, just reminding the test team that the next Lions team was training 9:30 Sunday morning and everybody out to hold the shields, make sure the next team had the preparation it needed. And, that was great to see as a coach and just reflect that, and I think, it meant that you hope that a lot comes out of it from the players in what they give to each other, and see the players reacting in that way. For me, was pretty special as well. Just to see them in that environment and end up with a series win against all the odds.
I mean, I think can I ask you, I'll move on to the way you built that, Geach, but were you aware of the cameras? Because this was before there were behind the scenes documentaries.
So true.
Yeah, I think Jim and I were a bit concerned about it, but the camera, they were brilliant. They were fantastic. They didn't interfere. They just literally became part of the group, and they were really helpful to us as coaches, because every session obviously was filmed, so it meant we could do a really good analysis after every training session. So the stuff that was coming back to the players back then, was way ahead of its time, simply because we had this professional group, and then editing it as well. So when we could present sessions and games to the players, just key things, it was a professional feedback, which we wouldn't have had. And as I say, they stayed out of the way. You wouldn't have known they were in the room, and
that's why you can see the rawness of the speeches, of the behind the scenes, the guys in the pub, and some of your description from that, Geach, from '97 rings true to me in the tour you took over in 2009 as well. That the training was unbelievably tough. I'll never forget the intensity of some of the training sessions. But in that first week, when you trained, you were 100%, but there was an awful lot of downtime. There was an awful huge emphasis put on a group coming together. When you think about the Lions, do you think that actually what happens on the pitch is almost second to building the group off the pitch and that environment, first of all?
Yes, I think off the pitch is so important. And I go back to the way it made me feel as a player back in '74, getting involved, walking through the hotel door in London, and in fact, at reception were Willie John and Gareth Edwards, who came across and just said, "Look, it's great to have you with us. Looking forward to the tour." And I couldn't believe, and they were just so welcoming, and the support you get as a player. Sid Miller was a great coach in that he just encouraged you to do things, and almost be yourself, not afraid of putting what you were there for on the field, and in the group. And in 3.5 months, what I do remember is, I was fortunately picked for the test matches, but there was Jeff Evans and Roy Bergier, the other two centres. Dick Milliken and I became the test centres, and there was only 2 changes in 2.5, 3 months to the test team. That the way that just the players who didn't play test matches as well trained, and the input they had, and just collectively away from the training field and away from the playing field, it was one group. Nobody had priority. Nobody was above anybody else. Everything was about whatever was going to happen next. There was their support for making sure it worked off the field and on the field. And that, I think, sometimes, I don't know, you fellas, it's back to feelings. But I remember how I felt when I was in that group, on the field and off it. That enjoyment, but also that huge support of just being in something that just grew, and having that feeling that I was probably, without doubt, playing the best rugby of my career as a player, and having the opportunity to do it. And that's why when I coached, which again I never anticipated coaching the Lions, but when I was coaching, was to try and make sure that I wanted you to have the same feeling I had about being part of a Lions group, and getting all that support and that positive support, which I think comes from players who are prepared to put everything into it, on and off the field, and just making sure that the environment was as good and as positive as possible. And then when you win in a Lions jersey, whether it's a series or one game, it's pretty special. So yeah, remember 2009 as well. We brought the media in. We had a quiz night. First week.
But like compared to what happened in 2005, where the media were on their backs, and it's so important. The Lions, you're on this 6-week tour. It was so important to try and bring everybody together. Like the synergy you created, and people talk about that 2009 tour, in that it brought the Lions back.
Yeah.
Even though we lost in that second test, which will go down as one of the most ferocious test matches of all time. Exactly. It was about how people felt, and that was included in the media.
Yeah, Gerald Davis was a great manager as well. Gerald had been involved in 71 and things, so he knew that impact of being in an environment where everybody's trying to make it as positive as possible. And without doubt, I still believe the most physical game of rugby I have seen, and still to this day, would say it was that second test in Pretoria. And I can also say, to that changing room afterwards was, I think, one of the saddest moments, just feel it, of seeing what had gone in on the field with that whole group of players, and to have to come off having not won, I think was one of the saddest times of just seeing the impact of that. But I think what really impressed me, there was a safari to follow, which Rala was sorting out. Buses going here, there, and everywhere for people not to go on safari or go on safari. But I think the reaction to that, and that lives with me and always will do, was having had the break when we came back as a group on that Wednesday to train again. The attitude was unbelievable. And you looked in saying, this is not a losing team. And any other way, yes, we didn't get the result, but this, and you two were both part of it, big part of it. It was even playing in the centre.
That's me, not Donica.
What you done?
If he only chased kicks for you, Geet.
But it was just that reaction, and it showed the togetherness of that group, because there was something like 8 or 9 changes to that team that
Yeah.
played the third test, and yet played rugby exactly the same way. You know, everything had been done together on the training field, and I think there was no difference, and that was such a big thing, um, to get that win and carry that win forward to 2013.
But Serene, you set the tone there. Like Tommy mentioned it, but and Tommy, we chat about this an awful lot, and I chat about with everyone on that tour. That text message from you in 2009 when we first arrived. I'm going for a pint, lads. I'll be in the bar. Would love to see ye if you'd like to come join me. And everyone thought it was a bit of a trap, if you know what I mean. But it built this unbelievable trust among the squad. And like I remember I was rooming with Hugo Manya. And Hugo was in bed reading his Bible. And 4 hours later, he was standing on a table singing a song with like 4 other Welsh lads. But just how it... Because I think we were of that kind of, it's starting to be really professional. And you know what I mean? We were used to team bonding events and we've seen them and we've done them all. But there's nothing like gelling a group like that with just a bit of socializing and spending time with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, if you remember, we'd been out to a dinner which went on quite late. We were due to be up going sailing.
Yeah, remember.
And racing the next morning. And it was Paul O'Connell came up and said, do we have to do it? We feel that, you know, there's been a lot of time and some of the boys are feeling really tired. How important is it we do it? And I think I asked Paul then, I said, well, how important do you think it is? He said, well, I think a rest and a day off would help. So we then said, right, that's it, on one condition, that everybody's in the bar when we get back within half an hour. And the message went round that meet up and then have a day off. I think some played golf, didn't they? Some stayed at the hotel. But actually we'd got that night and early morning together where you just learning a little bit about what you maybe didn't know before about another player in the group. And you know, sometimes you make a decision on instinct, and that was just that feeling that it felt right to do what we did. I think it cost the Lions about £10,000. It was a good thing to do.
It sure was. I still
was.
remember it very, very well until things got a little bit worse for wear. You mentioned Paulie there. Like he was a wonderful captain in 2009. You've talked about previous captains, the likes of Martin Johnson. You've coached and played alongside some wonderful characters. In the book, even you just talk about how you can't coach character, you find it. Was there any player in terms of leadership, you know, what is it that stands out about certain players, particularly in the Lions setting when you're coming together and building and bringing together 4 countries together?
I think respect is a big thing when you're looking at 4 countries. I know Martin Johnson was the big call at the time because he hadn't captained anybody, but I was coaching Northampton at the time. And obviously Northampton Leicester games were quite spicy. And so I'd come across Jono and the impact Jono could have, not just on his own team, but on the opponents as well. And that's, you know, when I said to Jim and Fran, look, the person, you know, the best person, I think, you know, pull everybody together, lead by example, but he has the respect, was Martin Johnson. And I did ask Dean Richards about it because I'd been on the 89 tour with Dean, and I used him as a sounding board in training about where we were, where we thought we were. And I got in touch with him and asked about Jono, and I said, you know, what do you think? And he said, no. He just said, Dean didn't say too much. He just said, he'll do a good job.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me. And Paul was the same. I mean, I had huge respect for Paul as a player. And obviously got to know him well in 2005. And he was obviously knew how upset he was in 2005 not to get a midweek massive T-shirt.
Yes, that's right.
So, but it was all about the again the feeling and it just felt right, you know. From a year before, as long as he was fit and playing,
Yeah.
he was, he was going to be the captain.
Geach, you used to always do what I always remember was you nearly taught us through stories. You taught us through the values and the standards by highlighting someone that did it brilliantly or previously in the tour before. But I remember you mentioning Jason Leonard, just the line that doesn't go out, that helps everyone else. And I just thought it was something totally new for me because I never saw that before. Someone highlighting someone that was maybe not lucky enough to tug out, but had the respect, like you mentioned, of everyone else. Just about some of those players that you came across that just when you put them into the environment, they went beyond. You know, there were some incredible ones.
Yeah, I say it goes back to my experience as a player, just how good Roy Berger and Jeff Evans were, the two centres who didn't get picked, and the training was hard, so they kept you honest. And I know Ian McGeechan, who we've lost recently as well, said that the toughest training scrummaging sessions that they had in '74 were against the non-test group. And I think Jason, the Lions, the uniqueness is that often, and I think there'll be players on the tour who've never not been first choice. So when you come to week 5, which it normally is when you're announcing the first test team, there'll be some players that will not have been in that position before because they've always been first choice. And how they respond ultimately sets the environment. You'll always have a good test team, whoever it is, because you're looking at the best players in 4 countries. And I think what really then stands out is the environment and the support that comes from the players who are not going to play that test match. And Jason spent time. We knew we were going to be under pressure in the scrum, and the big South African pack. And here we had Paul Wallace and Tom Smith, the 2 smallest props, to scrummage at a height that South Africa would not relish. And Jason Leonard, getting some of the other forwards together, and in 10, 15 minutes at the end of sessions in that test week, would do some work with those 2 on just the height they needed to scrummage at, and what to expect. And he did that all week in making sure that they were as ready as they could be. I know Keith Woods reminds everyone that they got the height wrong in the first scrum and it went back about 5 meters at a rapid rate. So there was a good lesson. But in the end, Matt Dawson's try came front with the best scrummage. You watch it, even went up on even got a right shoulder. But it was so what took something away from South Africa was the way we scrummaged. And here was an area where they thought they were going to dominate. So the psychology of the test matches changed. But they changed because every player, whether he played in a test match or not, had put everything out there to make sure the test performance was as good as it could be. And every player's test performance was as good as it could be. And so I'd felt that as a player with centres. I saw it in action, in 2009 and in 97, of just that such positive approach from players who would be hugely disappointed in what they were still doing to make sure the test team had no excuses.
You mentioned there week 5, where I'd say week 5 of this current tour, Geach, you've been on the telly with Sky. What have you made of it so far? First test coming up very shortly. Yeah, I'd be interested to get your take on it so far.
To be honest, I think I'm a little bit disappointed in quality of the opponent. As I wish Australia had played all their top players in the state games, and they could miss out on that as well, because the test match is so different.
Mm-hmm.
I know back in '89 that we did play everybody, and there was some battles, but I think the problem. So the issue is first test will be so different, because you could say Australian rugby, Super Rugby, went well this year, so there is a bit of confidence about it. But Australia, more than New Zealand and South Africa, is that their top 30, 40 players are very good players.
Yeah.
So they might not have the depth. So when you come across them for the first time, which will be Test match 1, then the Lions have to understand the impact of what that game will bring from their opponents. And as you two know so well, it's how much playing the Lions means to an opponent, that it's their biggest game. I mean, and when you've got very good players, a group of them, who see it as their very best game or biggest game, then it just makes the impact even greater in that. And that's the respect of the Lions has in the 3 Southern Hemisphere countries. So I think, for me, that the Lions have a good squad. And it'll be a good test team. There'll be some preferences, but it's not that there's no obvious weaknesses there. But what they've got to expect is what comes from Australia, and meet fire with fire to get that level up in the first 15, 20 minutes of the game. And then I think winning that first test then has a huge psychological impact. And in '89, we got that wrong. We were outplayed in the first test.
Yeah.
We did go a bit back to basics and set piece and big Englishmen up front, to actually take them on up front, and just slow everything down. And then we still had the match winners like Jerry Guscott in the backs. So it's knowing that there will be an impact on Saturday.
Huge.
That the Lions have to be prepared for.
Just on that, Serene, an awful lot of debate and conversation about Andy Farrell's game plan. We're quite used to seeing it in Ireland, where he's using his forwards around the pitch and different stuff. But you mentioned back to basics when you're trying to gel a squad together. What have you made of the way the Lions are playing? Do you like that type of rugby? Do you think that that's the way to beat Australia, or would you look to get back to more basics and do whatever it takes to get a result?
No, I think I am a back Donica, so I've got to think.
Put it in the corners,
passing's always pretty good. But no, I think it's like anything. I think the Lions have the capability of putting Australia under a lot of pressure at scrum and line out. I think what they'll want to improve, and everybody's said it, is the breakdown.
Yeah.
Because if it's an opponent's breakdown, if you can slow it down, then it takes the pressure off the defence. If it's an attacking breakdown, and which is where Ireland are so good, is that interchange of running off 9 or running off 10, and have players coming into play at speed and later, which obviously Andy Farrell, is very keen on, and it's that earning the right in the contact to play the game you want to play, and you can't get away with scrum, line out, kickoffs, and breakdowns. If the Lions get that right, then I think they'll have too much for Australia, because there's good attacking players, there's speed, and there's a lot of potential ball carriers in different parts of the field, which in a way gives the greater variety, but also makes them unpredictable, which is, in the end, as a coach, is what you want.
I saw Ronan O'Gara picked his team there. I think there was 9 Irish starting in the 15.
Only
I think
9.
You're beside him for that. Are you a believer in starting with your best 15? Are you a believer in combinations? What was your kind of mantra in terms of do you have the Scottish pairing together with the English or the Irish pair? Whenever you were building a Lions squad, what was the most important part in terms of selection?
Well, Tommy, I can tell you that at the beginning of most tours as coaches, we'd put down what we thought our starting test 15 would be.
Would you right?
I never got it right.
No way.
Never got it right because of what you've said: combinations, chemistry, players coming through in games, but particularly in training. I think the Lions training, when you mentioned it earlier, there's far more training than playing. What you learn on the training field and how you adapt to others, it brings different things out of players that you haven't seen before, because you're doing it often with a player from another country. So I think all that comes into it. Chemistry is important, and that understanding on the field is important. And a lot of that comes from what happens on the training field. So I think that is important. I would go for what I would consider the strongest. See, but it's always it is a personal preference. It's what you've seen and what you think can make the biggest impact. And some of that is combinations and chemistry in what's happened in training and what's happened in the previous games. And so I think Andy will have a good idea in his head. And sometimes as a coach, it's just a gut feeling about what you see in a player and what you want to come out, what you think will come out when he's alongside some of the other players. So it's a mix and match, obviously, but you are talking about, and that's the real privilege of coaching the Lions. You have got the best group of players from 4 countries. So we're not talking about players not good enough. But it is back to combination and adaptability and having an open mind that you can try things differently. And it's the players who do that, and often then on the test match field will keep that open mind and bring the best out of each other. And that brings out a game which I think reflects and characterizes that group of players. And I go back to any Lions tour, they're all slightly different in the way they play, how they play, because it comes down to the chemistry on the field in the big moments.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be the interesting bit for me to watch and see on Saturday.
It's changed an awful lot. We're seeing a few players being called in late on tour. Just how do you manage that dynamic, Geech? Especially as well when, the media always does have a take and we all put on our biased hats that we'd like more Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English, even 1 or 2 Munster would be nice. No, but how do you manage that, Geach? That kind of balance in bringing someone in late and embedding them. Like Owen Farrell's an interesting one, isn't it? Like, do you see him having a major part to play on this tour?
Well, the reasons for him not being there are obvious, but there is a huge logic for having him there in the fourth tour that he will have been on. He is a test match animal.
Yeah, yes.
He knows how to win Lions test matches. So the impact he can have, we're back to the training field and what you do there and what you pick up there and the feedback that comes back. It probably will not be it will not be starting test 15. Could well be possibly on the bench. But what you can bet is this coming week, he will be putting a lot of pressure on the test players in the way he trains against them and the way he organises others against them. So the outcome at the end of the week is a better test team just because of that impact on the whole group with attitude and then you are avoiding a lot of the pitfalls that could be there for players who haven't been in that situation.
Big time. Big time. Listen, we won't hold you much longer, Geach. I do want to say it is the week of the first test. As a coach, Andy Farrell's talked about the midweek matches. I can imagine it's almost a slog. You know, it's tough getting through those early stages. We all want to get to the test matches. As a coach, from the coaching side, because you're obviously there as a player as well, but week of test match 1, is it excitement for a coach? Is this when the real nerves kicks in? This is where the real interest, the supporters all start to descend on the country and the cities that you're visiting?
Yeah, well, as you said, it is week 5 or thereabouts. Tours have got shorter, and you do, which is really the big thing about the 97 Lions was because it was on Sky and because they were doing well, and because of the timeline. There was a lot of people who actually decided on the Thursday night they were flying out Friday to watch a test match Saturday,
Wow.
come back Sunday and go back into work on Monday.
Wow.
So suddenly you've got, in 89, there was probably 1,000 spectators, maybe 900, 1,000, not a huge amount. In 74, I think there was one official spectator. Things have changed a bit, but 97 I think changed that because there was the story of the supporters.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's happened since 97 is that relationship between the team and the support, which has just got stronger. And just little story after 2009, went back to Washington. We did a charity evening, and there was supporters from all over. And an elderly lady came up to me after the evening and just said, "Oh, thank you very much for that. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much," she said. And I thought she meant for the evening. And she said, "No," she said, "for the Lions and the tour." And I sort of looked at her quizzically. And she said, "Well, my husband and I had saved up 4 years to go on the tour. And unfortunately, he died in February. But my family persuaded me to still go out on the tour." And she said, "I was out for 3 weeks." She said, "I had my Lions jersey on." She said, "I was never alone once on that tour. The only reason I was wearing a Lions jersey, whether it's English, Irish, Scots, whatever, Welsh, I was part of something." He said, "God willing, if I'm still fit and healthy, I'll be in Australia in 2030.
Wow.
And that is the impact. I think that sometimes you don't get that. Hit me quite strongly, you know, that that's how much it means. And it's another unique piece of the Lions is that connection with its support as a team, and not to underestimate how important it is to players. The great thing now is when you hear players still talk about it's the biggest jersey they can wear, when you know the Lions are in good shape. If the players don't say that, the Lions will not last. The Lions are there because it means so much to the players in 4 countries. And if you get the privilege and the opportunity to coach them as well, then you are in special places.
Absolutely, absolutely. And no better man that to epitomise that. Geech, Sir Ian McGeechan, the ultimate lion, the Lion King. Listen, and you know, the head coach of probably myself and Donica's favourite. We're both a part of 2 Lions tours, but 2009 was just something really special. And Geech, thanks so much, man. Honestly, really enjoyed that chat. Great to see you looking fit, healthy, and still coaching away in Doncaster. Never ends.
I say, as you've just found out, I can bore anybody about rugby for as long as you like. And I'm just doing that to the players here now.
No chance, Geech. But Tommy mentioned it there. From 2-year Cubs, you gave us a massive love for Lions rugby, and you always set the tone. We all try to be Lions, but you're Mufasa, and we're so proud to be around you. And you need to know how much we all love you. Thank you so much for everything you did in our careers.
Donica, thank you, Tony. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.